What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. It's nearly December, so the Christmas theme is out, and that means there's a lot of game weeks to come over the next month, starting with game week 14. Deadline is tomorrow, hence transfer tips. This video coming out as early as possible on Monday because we've got team selection later on as well. So in this one, we're going to go through some of the players that are kind of either heavily transferred in or out, or are big topics of conversation within the community. So the likes of FODEN, JOTA, ALONSO, etc. are all going to be covered in this one. If you do enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Let's jump into it. So as always, everything in this video comes with a caveat that I've not seen all the press conferences yet at the time of recording, because obviously there's such quick turnarounds, there's not going to be time to wait for them all before we start talking. So if Firmino was completely fit this week, right, Klopp said he's definitely going to start against Everton, then yeah, okay, it makes JOTA maybe less of an option, because there would be some rotation. He would be somewhat of a rotation concern. Doesn't mean that he wouldn't start matches when Firmino's back, but obviously when he's out, it makes him pretty much about as nailed on as he's ever going to get. I looked at the fixtures though. Yes, Klopp said that that Firmino was doing better or something like that, but Liverpool never put a time frame on it. So all we really have to go on is that Athletic article, which said he's going to be out till the middle of December, which is still quite a few fixtures, right? So before, let's say middle of December, 16th of December, right, is when Liverpool play Newcastle in game week 17. They've got 3 fixtures before that. They also, in the league days, they also have Champions League, but they've won their Champions League group. They're miles clear. They can rest players against Milan. So it probably makes sense to play JOTA against Everton, against Wolves, rest him for Milan. I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but it could do. And then you get a full week off between Wolves and the Villa game from game week 15 and 16. So I don't really see too many reasons not to buy JOTA if you've got a spare transfer for it. Some of the players on this list that we're going to talk about are probably players you're thinking about selling him for. I just think because there's not a 100% fit and nailed Man City attacker, you could say Bernardo Silva. I don't think he's the greatest option. Gundogan is also a nice option right now. He's someone that I'm considering. So it's not that there's no Man City options, but when you've got a nailed attacker for Liverpool that's only 7.7 million, not essential, but he's a pretty damn good option, right? And alongside Salah right now, I don't know if there's many other options that I really want in my midfield. Like, there are lots of options we could consider. There's lots of good options. But in terms of standout, JOTA is right up there with Salah. And as we know, once African Cup of Nations happens towards the end of December / start of January, then Jota's going to play even more minutes. Yes, you could say the Liverpool team won't be quite as good with those 2 players missing. That's a fair argument. But JOTA is still ridiculous value. So got to be honest, I don't really see any reason not to buy him. Could he get rested over Christmas like everyone else? Yes, it could happen. But 7.7 million, ridiculous value. We don't know when Firmino is going to be back. Even if he's back soon, surely he's not going to be rushed straight into it, especially with Salah and Mane going off to the African Cup of Nations. They want to make sure he doesn't get injured again. So he's not. I don't think he's going to play against Everton. Even if he was back, possibly for Everton in the squad, the next turnaround's pretty quick as well. And I think Jota's just going to get loads of minutes over December. So looks like a pretty damn good buy. 300,000 of you have already done it. Okay, lots of people frustrated with Foden because they kept him last week and then he completely missed out. And some of you would have had good bench options, like players coming off the bench. But a lot of you also had players like Livramento, like me, who just got a 0 point. So it wasn't ideal. I think there's definitely a tendency to kind of make a rash decision now, because a lot of people would have been considering going Foden to JOTA and they didn't make the move. There's probably like a kind of knee-jerk reaction now to make that move anyway. I got to be honest, I still think that is a good move. I said it was a good move last week. The main reason was I just think Jota's going to get more minutes than Foden. Like, we don't quite know what Foden's injury is. Or when he's going to be back. Like, again, Pep said he's doing better, but then he wasn't even in the squad at all. Now they've got another game this week coming, then another game at the weekend. And this is the problem with this time of the year. A player picks up a minor knock, they may be going to miss a game, and then that goes into the next game with such quick turnarounds. Like, at the start of the season when there's international breaks, a player can be out for like a couple of weeks and only miss 1 game. Now you're out for a couple of weeks, you miss kind of 3-4 games. So I think Foden's a pretty decent sell, depending on what Pep says. If he's fit, you can make a case to keep him, because we shouldn't forget, right, as much as it's been frustrating that he missed out the last game, we shouldn't forget that he has been pretty much nailed on. It's not to say that he'll come back into the side and be nailed on, but he did start 8 in 8 games when he was fit, right? So we shouldn't forget that. If you've got a good squad, you've already got JOTA in place, it might be worth keeping Foden. Let's say you want to sell him. Let's say Pep gives us no indication that he's going to start against Villa. You're then worried about whether he starts against Watford. You already own JOTA, who is the go-to guy. Who else do you go for? If you haven't got... I'm just going to take this from a point of view that you haven't got money to upgrade, because obviously then you get into the likes of Son, maybe Rashford or someone like that. I think I would probably stick with Man City and I would go to Gundogan. I think a lot of people looking at Gundogan and Bernardo Silva. Again, this isn't knee-jerk. I said this last week. Gundogan's always the one that I favour. I just think he picks up better positions in the box. And Bernardo Silva, and this isn't me saying that Bernardo Silva is never in the box and he never has shots in the box or anything like that. But I think he's more happy or happier to kind of be outside the box, creating something, pressing, etc. Gundogan's more likely to make those runs from deep, get in the box, good position, score a goal like he did this week. And also, his underlying numbers, his expected data, expected goals, expected assists, are just better than Bernardo Silva this year. They were also better last year. And over the long term, that usually produces more points. So Gundogan is probably where I would go. I've actually got the list of midfielders, kind of 8.5 million or under, open up. And I don't think there's a huge amount of other standout options, which is why keeping Foden, especially if you already had JOTA, just to keep saying that, wasn't such a bad move. Like Grealish, he's not fit at the moment either. Arsenal midfielder, Saka or Smith Rowe, is not that bad if you need the money, but it's not the right week to bring them in because they're playing Man United away, and I know Man United are playing poor, etc., but they're going to set up in a way to try and not be beaten and to try and defend well. RAPHINHA is not a bad option either, but he's only got 2 good fixtures and then they're really bad, so I wouldn't be looking to bring him in. So I really think you're either downgrading to like a Smith Rowe, a Saka, a Gallagher or someone like that, maybe RAPHINHA for a very short period of time. You're either sticking with him or you're going to JOTA if you don't own, or Gundogan. I think JOTA and Gundogan are the 2 that I'd be looking at. If you've got both of them, it's probably a downgrade or just hold on to him if you've got a good enough bench. But yeah, if Pep says he's out again, I think it probably is time to sell unless your squad is so good that you can cope with it. Like some people have got like 5 really good premium defenders and they got Foden and they got JOTA and they got Salah and they got a Spurs player. In that case, you can maybe keep him, but that's probably one of the only situations where I would do that. I'm not even waiting for people to ask me in the game week preview about Ronaldo. I'm just going to talk about him in this one. I got to be honest, right? This is really tough, okay? If he was going to play all 6 of these fixtures, then he is arguably the best striker option over the next few weeks, right? Ahead of like Lukaku, maybe ahead of Kane. Kane's got 2 good fixtures and then they're not quite as good, which is why Ronaldo's probably slightly ahead of him over the long term, but not for the next 2. But is he going to keep getting kind of rested, rotated? It's very difficult to know why he missed out against Chelsea. Like some people are speculating that Rangnick kind of helped pick the side. He wanted to kind of press. That wasn't what Ronaldo does. And I don't want to get into a conversation about that because I've had enough of it on Twitter this morning. But you have to accept that Ronaldo is 36. He's going to be 37 in February, right? Forget about pressing. This is not about pressing. This is just about age. He needs to be rested at times, right? Age catches up with everyone. The usual response is he's in great shape. He is. Compared to the average 36-year-old, he is in fantastic shape, right? And compared to a lot of footballers, he's in fantastic shape. But age catches up with everyone. He's not the same player he once was. That's just life, right? That happens. And I was actually reading like Zidane, even when he was like 32, 33, Ronaldo, he got rested to be ready for the bigger games later on in the season. Now, I'm not saying Chelsea is necessarily the game that you rest him in, but over this Christmas period where there's lots of games coming, I just worry about, and I think I did say this last week, I think people were looking at Fernandes as well, although he has been awful, by the way. I just don't know if how many of these games is he going to start, right? There's lots of games in quick succession. So if I just bring up Man United's fixtures here, I've not got them on screen, but so they play 2nd of December, this Thursday against Arsenal, then straight into a Sunday game, then it's a week off for Saturday, but then they play Tuesday. So is Ronaldo going to play all 4 of those games? I just don't know. But I also think you could make a case to keep him because I don't know if now is the right time to be switching to Kane, who's only got 2 good fixtures just before Man United's great fixtures are going to start. I think if you wanted to captain Kane, I'm not sure if many people would, but Brentford at home and Norwich home are pretty good. You could make that switch and then maybe even look to completely switch out for Kane. What I will say, if it helps, is as of right now, and again, reserve the right to change my mind as always, I don't see me buying Ronaldo. While Salah is like permanent captain, I'm not saying he's always going to be permanent captain, but it's very difficult to look past him for the next few fixtures, apart from maybe game week 15 if you want to captain Kane against Norwich at home. And then you might turn around and say, well, Ronaldo's got Norwich as well, but first of all, it's an away game. And in that week, Salah's got Villa at home, I think. So I'm definitely captaining Salah that week. So these players at 12 plus million, the value is in one, because they have penalties, but there hasn't been that many penalties. They're very hard to predict. And we don't even know if Ronaldo's on them. And two, because we're going to captain them. And if you're not going to captain him, maybe you are. If you are, then that should definitely be part of your thinking. But if you're not going to captain him, then it's hard to kind of swallow a 12.4 million price. And again, the usual caveats apply. If you've got a squad where you jumped on early, you've got the 4 premium defenders, you've also got Jota, you've got Salah, you've maybe even still got Foden in there, you've got a pretty decent bench and stuff like that, and you've got Kane, you've got an easy switch to Ronaldo, then fair enough, I can absolutely see why you go for him. But if you want to spread the money around a bit more, I just don't know if Ronaldo is the option right now, but those fixtures are pretty good. Like Crystal Palace, okay, they have been defending well, they've been leaking a few goals. Norwich is still a good fixture. I'm not buying the fact that Dean Smith has had a couple of good results as a reason not to target Norwich anymore. Brentford, Newcastle, all good fixtures, so I can see why you'd want to hold him, and I don't think it's a mistake to hold him, but I also at this point don't think it's a mistake to sell either, because I just don't know how many of those games he's going to play. And because of that doubt, I think that puts the captaincy doubt into... Sorry, I've said doubt too many times, but because you're worried about him not necessarily playing all those games, does that put doubt into your mind about throwing a captaincy on him? Salah will get rested at some point. Salah could get rested this week, who knows? But I think once that rest happens, you know he's probably going to play all the other games pretty much, and so you're happy to throw the captaincy armband on him. I just don't see that with Ronaldo anymore. So what would I do if I had him? I'd probably keep and not go to Kane. But I don't think I'd be buying at this point, and I don't think I'm going to buy him for game week 16, but by that point I might have changed my mind. Okay, so Leeds were pretty poor this weekend against Brighton. Now, it is worth saying that I guess out of the remaining good 3 fixtures for Leeds, like Brighton, Palace and Brentford, Brighton was probably going to be the most difficult. I really do think they're missing Bamford. Like, their squad is just... is probably not good enough to cope with a player like Bamford missing, and he has been out for a while, right? So as good as RAPHINHA is, Bamford is kind of integral to how Leeds play. He makes such good runs. He obviously presses from the front as well. Like, Bamford is great. And the thing is, he is getting back to fitness, and I'm sure he's probably going to play like games for them. Like, usually Bielsa, if they've been out for a while, they play... maybe all teams do this, but I feel like we know this more for Leeds. Play for the under-23s, etc. Yeah, a lot of teams do that if a player's been out for a while. And like, even if he was fit, he's not going to play Crystal Palace game, Bamford. So then you're relying on him being back for the Brentford game, and that's not guaranteed either. So I think with RAPHINHA, he is good enough to give him the last 2 games. Right? I've seen people buying him, and I don't think it's necessarily a big mistake, because again, like, he's 6.7 million. So if I go to kind of 7 million or under players, you could go for Bowen, but you're getting him for Brighton at home and Chelsea at home. It might not be the right time to jump on him. It's probably a better time to jump on him in game week 16. So you could leave RAPHINHA for now and then go to Bowen, unless you need money. Right, because maybe you're downgrading to fund another move. You could do that. Obviously, right now, I don't think people are going to be buying Mbeumo. They're probably sick of him. Saka again, Saka and Smith Rowe. It's like, well, they're playing Man United away. It's probably not the right time. Trossard maybe is an option, but the point is, there's not a huge amount of standout options at that price point. Like, if you had the extra 0.5 million to go to Gundogan, that's not a bad move. But I think if I had RAPHINHA, and by the way, the amount of transfers out, 28k, is the same as it's pretty much the same as his transfers in. So it's not like he's being heavily sold, but he is quite a popular pick in the community. I think you give him Crystal Palace at home and Brentford at home. He's just good enough to get points in those games, even without Bamford. Like, it is more difficult without him, but I think he can do it. Like, he's shown he can do it. His numbers are still good, like ridiculously good, to be honest. He hasn't had assists yet. That's probably a little bit unfortunate for the amount of games he's played. And the one thing you have with him, again, over a busy period where there are going to be 2 games in quick succession, we are fairly sure he's going to start both of them, and he's probably going to play 80 to 90 minutes in both of them as well, unless they're like, you know, 3-4 goals up somehow against Crystal Palace and he gets brought off early. But at that point, he would have had some involvement anyway. So the fact he's nailed over a quick turnaround of 2 fixtures, probably going to play 80 to 90 minutes. There's not a huge amount of standout options unless you've got cash to burn, and I wouldn't be going to kind of Bowen or Saka, etc. this week anyway, or Smith Rowe. I think you'd probably keep him. Like, a few people are probably thinking about moving into Gallagher. I just don't think that's the right move this week. I would just keep him for the next 2, mostly due to a lack of options, if I'm completely honest. So let's talk about Marcus Alonso. Probably unsurprisingly, Chelsea's left wing back backup to Chilwell started left wing back while Chilwell was out. Now, I don't want to get too cocky about it because there's still people talking about how Pulisic or Hudson-Odoi could play left wing back. And interestingly, when Alonso came off against Man United, it was Reece James that went to left wing back, so Pulisic could play right wing back. So that, I mean, you can look at that however you want. You could look at that as Tuchel experimenting. Could he play Reece James left wing back to then play one of the others right wing back? But it also tells me he's not completely comfortable with playing Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic at left wing back to the point where he puts his main man, who's been brilliant at right wing back, over there to cover when Alonso's not on the pitch. Now, Alonso, I don't think he was that bad yesterday. You have to be careful with Alonso because Chelsea fans really don't rate him. And I'm not saying he's the best defender. And I'm not saying they can be as attacking. Or it's not even about being as attacking with Alonso over Chilwell. It's about being as good in attack. Right? I'm not saying he is. But I also don't think he's as awful as some fans make him out. So you've got to be a little bit careful. I don't think he was that bad against Man United. There were definitely some rusty touches. But he's been out for a little while. Right? And Man United did try and press quite a lot. Like they used McTominay and Fred as a help to press the wing-backs, right, to kind of pin them back a bit. It didn't really work that well. Chelsea got plenty of chances, but that's what they tried. So I think Alonso's still pretty good going forward. Like, if you haven't got Trent, fair enough, get Trent. You could also argue that Cancelo and Reece James are both ahead of Alonso. But as it stands right now, Chilwell is still out. We've not really seen any evidence that Tuchel wants to play someone at left wing back. First game back against Man United. Yes, it's not the same Man United as old, maybe, but Alonso's straight in there. Watford away this week. Leeds, Everton, Wolves, Villa. All fixtures where there could be clean sheets. Even West Ham as well. I don't really see a good reason not to start thinking about bringing him in if you haven't already. I don't think you necessarily need to go and take hits to do it if you don't want to. You don't need to take out Reece James. If you've got Rudiger, you probably keep him because he's going to be good for clean sheets and minutes over the Christmas period. But in terms of Alonso's minutes, I don't... Like, he came off early, but maybe that's to be expected because... maybe Tuchel wanted to try something else, push for the win, and also because he hadn't played that much recently either. And obviously there are a lot of games to come, and he needs a left wing back. So I don't know. I think the amount of talk about it in the media, I don't know, maybe it's just Twitter, maybe it's just me noticing it. It feels like there's a lot of people still talking about the fact he could miss out. And there's so much talk that it maybe puts a little bit of doubt in my mind. But I'm probably still going to buy him this week. I just don't see Tuchel going full time. Like saying to Alonso, you're just not good enough now to play for me when Chilwell's out. I mean, what's that going to do to him? Long term, they might get another player in recalled off loan, or might maybe buy someone to come in to kind of be back up to Chilwell, or you know, provide some competition. But for now, Alonso's really the only option, and therefore I think he's going to keep playing. And he's so attacking. Like, don't read too much into the Man United game, right? He's so attacking, like, going forward. There's so many good fixtures. There's plenty of points coming from him. And by the way, he could have had an assist, like, really early in the game. Hudson-Odoi is a pretty good save from De Gea. So within, like, 2-3 minutes, he almost came close to an attacking return. So, you know, I like the guy, so I'm a little bit biased. I think from an FPL point of view, he's one of my favourite ever defenders. And I'm not saying you get him instead of Cancelo, James or Trent, but if you've got those three, you've got a defender slot. I think he has to come in. And Watford away is such a great fixture to do it in. So MBEUMO's not really that highly owned. And to be honest, hasn't really been transferred out by that many people yet. But people are frustrated with him. And he is quite a popular pick within the community again. And I was asked so many times about him last night on the stream that I wanted to talk about him a little bit in this video about whether or not you should sell him if you own him, right? I get that no one wants to buy him right now, although the fixtures aren't that bad, right? Leeds away, Watford at home, Southampton away. They're not really bad fixtures. Like 3 of the next 5 are okay. Spurs away, there's maybe not even the worst time to play Spurs, although we should kind of acknowledge that because Spurs' game was called off against Burnley, they are going to be a little fresher than everyone else. So that might hurt Brentford a little bit. But for now, he's only 5.6 million. Yes, okay, you could be a hindsight merchant and say, well, back then when we bought MBEUMO, we should have bought Smith Rowe instead. We should have bought Gallagher instead. And fair enough, they score more points. But FPL is all about prediction. And like I thought back then, MBEUMO would do fine. The first game I owned him, he scored. And then he hasn't really done anything since. But you kind of have to forget all that, right? You can't just sit there forever saying it's a mistake to hold him. It was a mistake to hold him. It was a mistake to hold him. Because that doesn't matter now. That's been and gone. So the question is, should you sell him right now? And again, how much money do you have to spend? Because if you've only got 5.6 million, I don't really know who you're going to buy. If I look at the list of kind of 5.5 million options or under, there's like Rodri at Man City. I mean, he might score more goals, get more assists, but I don't think many people are going there. Decore's now back for Everton, but Everton's fixtures aren't that great. And then you're looking at kind of 4.5 million midfielders. So you could like have a change in structure. But unless you've got money to go up to the likes of kind of Bowen or Gallagher or maybe even Smith Rowe or Saka, if Saka's fit, etc., before their game week 15 game. But then Mbeumo's got Leeds away and Watford at home. And he looks pretty nailed. Like, he could lose his place at some point. But they switched back to a front two against Everton. And Mbeumo was in that side. He did have a pretty good chance. Like, it wasn't a brilliant chance, but it was okay. And he really just... There was no power to the shot at all. It was awful and very disappointing. But I got to be honest, I think you keep him. I think you keep him. Like, if most people's squads are not in a position where they got loads of money to play with, and if you have, fair enough, you upgrade him, and also where they haven't got other fires to put out. So I'm going to talk about this for my own team later on today when I do the team selection video. But if I look at my team, Mbeumo with Leeds away, Watford at home at 5.6 million is just not the biggest worry in my team, so I'm not going to sell him. I'm not saying I'll never upgrade him. And around game week 16, 17, if I sell Kane and I don't get Ronaldo, then I'll have a bit of money to spend. And maybe at that point I'll upgrade him. Because it's not that I think there's no better options. I just think most of the better options cost about 1.5 to 2 million more or more. So that's the problem with him. So around the 5.6, for 5.6 million or less, I still think he's the best option. I'm just going to say it. I know he's not been great, but hopefully he can get some returns soon. Leeds away, Watford at home, it's time to do it. Great, if you got money, upgrade him, get rid of him, get rid of the frustration and stuff like that. But otherwise, I think you just keep him. The fixtures are okay in the next 3. He looks pretty nailed. Why not? There we go, lots of players covered. Let me know what you think about all these. I think JOTA definitely a buy. Foden possibly a sell, especially if Pep says he's out. Ronaldo's difficult. I'd possibly hold him if I had him. Raphinha keep, Mbeumo keep, Alonso buy. I think that's how I'd sum it up. Let me know if you think differently in the comments below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. There won't be all the usual content this week because obviously there's quick turnarounds, but I'm going to try and get out most of it. So we'll have team selection later on today. Game week preview will be tomorrow. Mostly going to be a Q&A type thing. Then we'll have a deadline stream ahead of the game week 14 deadline. Then we'll do it all again for game week 15. So thank you for watching. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.